Noelle.
Hello, everybody. Once again, I am Noelle Deleon. Today, I will be presenting the history of Femme Queen performance. Femme Queen performance is a category in the ballroom community, where Black trans women and trans presenting women showcase Vogue and the 5 elements of Vogue.
We're good, sorry.
The Femme Queen Archive, the beauty of Black trans life in our existence is evolution, lineage, and language. In 2019, I started the journey of my archival work as an ode to the generations of women before me. I wanted to make sure the world knew the beauty, power, and history of Black trans women carry every day in life and in the ballroom community and their career paths. It's always been important to me to document and collect the history of the world and the spaces within it, specifically the existence of Black trans life and all that has blossomed from the history of it. What is Femme Queen performance? Femme Queen performance, also known as Femme Queen Vogue, is a style of dance created and pioneered by trans women in the ballroom community. The first generation of Femme Queen performances introduced the style throughout the 1980s. The style of Femme Queen Vogue during this time period was a more feminine and delicate extension of Old Way, which was the original style of Vogue from the early days of ballroom. Old Way Vogue, also known as pop, dip, and spin. Old Way is the first Voguing style, which was the foundation for the development of New Way and Vogue Femme. It's characterized by the formation of lines, symmetry, and precision of the body. Physical forms like martial arts, breakdance, popping, and military styles served as inspirations for Old Way Vogue. Examples of Voguers rooted in this style would be Stevie Saint Laurent, Jerome Magnifique, Jamal Milan, Andre Mizrahi, Tim Lanvin, Cesar Valentino, Ira Aphrodite, Dewan Milan, Fuquan Ebony, and Kevin Milan, and more. New Way Vogue. The New Way is characterized by its precision while creating complex angles, stretching lines, and illusions with the body, arms, wrists, hands, and the bending of the body. It was inspired and created by performers who showcase innate flexibility and poses inspired by contortionists, gymnastics, and yoga. Examples of Voguers rooted in this style would be Willie Ninja, Lance Adonis, Jose Revlon, Jose Extravaganza, Derek Extravaganza, Louise Extravaganza, Stanley Milan, Aviance Milan, Javier Ninja, Edwin Revlon, and more. The first, The first look at Femme Queen performance was built around Femme Queen Old Way, which was popularized by individuals like Leah Richards, Sandy Ninja, Bianca Extravaganza, Modavia LaBeija, with mentions of Octavia Saint Laurent, Danielle Revlon, Melissa Extravaganza, and others before the 5 elements were introduced in the early 90s. As the category evolved out of the traditional Old Way style, Letitia Revlon was a big influence in the formation of Femme Queen performance with the elements. Alyssa LaPerla, Christina Richards, and others were the next generation of women who pushed Femme Queen performance in a new direction with their distinctive styles, a shift that would result in the creation of Vogue Femme, which is the use of all 5 elements: catwalk, duck walk, dips, hands, and floor performance. The early days of Vogue Femme revolved around the women using one or more of the elements in their performance. By 1990 to 1993, the introduction of the 5 elements were molded into one performance for Voguers, and more women started to walk the category, pushing the style further in terms of technique and popularity. Vogue Femme. Vogue Femme is based on the foundation and technique of Old Way Vogue and embodies feminine movement. It's known for the 5 elements: hand performance, catwalk, duck walk, dips, sorry, and floor performance with spin dips qualifying as a component as well. The, in, the incorporation of various styles, various dance styles like hip hop, classical, ballet, jazz, and others have been used in the formation of Vogue Femme. Butch Queen Vogue Femme is based on the foundation and technique of Femme Queen Vogue, which is executed by Butch Queens using the 5 elements. Butch Queen Vogue Femme is defined as a Butch Queen voguing like a femme queen and was introduced into the ballroom community in the early 90s. As Vogue Femme and the elements starting to evolve, the men began to emulate the femme queens in their performance. Examples of early known Butch Queen Vogue films would be Eugene Milan, Baby St. Clair, Taifa, Ebony Icon, Shay Shay Icon, Mystery Dior, Albert Revlon, Charles Kahn, Armani Milan, Lil Kevin Prodigy, Kevin Allure, and more. With the progression of the previous generations of Femme Queen Vogue, the third generation of women made their way in with the influence and technique of the generation before them. Sanaya Ebony, Ashley Icon, Celeste Infinity, Angel Revlon, Sabrina Icon, Venus Mizrahi, and others were a part of the first look at the 5 elements of Vogue and Femme Queen performance. These women and many more were the introduction to what Femme Queen performance would look like for generations that came after them. The fourth generation of Femme Queen performance introduced us to the most influential and innovative generation of Voguers in ballroom. Didi Revlon, Niambi Prodigy, Yolanda Jordan, Deja La Perla, Mika Prodigy, Alora Jordan, Johnny Zion, Tamara Ebony, Amina Prodigy, Sexy Leslie, Mariah Revlon, Charisma Icon, Stacey Mizrahi, and more were the generation of women who changed the structure of the 5 elements in Femme Queen performance. With the introduction of distinct styles and techniques, Vogue started to be differentiated between soft and cunt and dramatics. As Voguers started to experiment with their individual style of Vogue. This was a generation that reinvented Femme Queen Vogue to the highest degree and became a study guide that all others that came after this era would follow. The 5 elements of Vogue is the catwalk, duck walk, dips, hand performance, and floor performance. The catwalk is an exaggerated walk in the form of focus lines, while the duck walk is an exaggerated bounce in a squat in a focus line. Hand performance is built around creating shapes and illusions with your hands, and floor performance is centered around the stretch poses and movements of the body, of the legs and lower body. A dip is a pose that can either be in an arch or flat position on the ground. Who comes from the lineage of Femme Queen performance? There are 9 generations. The first generation would be Leah Richards, Moldavia LaBeija, Sandy Ninja, Melissa Extravaganza, Bianca Extravaganza, Khadidra Saint Laurent, Danielle Revlon, Princess Magnifique. The second generation would be Letitia Revlon, Alyssa LaPerla, Christina Richards, Brenda Continental. The third generation would be Sanaya Ebony, Ashley Icon, Venus Mizrahi, Sabrina Icon, Celeste Infinity, Angel Revlon. The fourth generation, Didi Revlon West, Niambi Prodigy, Yolanda Jordan, Sandy Dior, Deja La Perla, Janice Zion, Tamara Ebony, Amina Prodigy, Alora Jordan, Mika Prodigy Alpha Omega, Alexis Balenciaga, Mariah Revlon, Charisma Icon, Stacey Mizrahi, Kenya Ebony, and more. Sorry. The fifth generation, Mercedes Prodigy, Champagne Icon, Amazon Naomi, now Mugler, Roxy Prodigy, Sequoia Prodigy, Don Ebony, Erica Kane Margella, Kima Ebony, Kelly Blonick DMV, Tia Jordan Lanvin, Brenda Revlon. Sixth generation, Tiffany Prodigy, Shadira Prodigy, Katrina Ebony, Lola Ebony, Skittles Khan, Veronica Mulan Mugler, Feminine Destruction, Malaysia Ebony, Vanity Gorgeous Gucci. The seventh generation would be Asia West, Jasmine Prodigy, Davina Icon, Tamara Prodigy, Tamisha Ebony, Yanni Ebony, Paris Mizrahi, LaDonna Khan, Barbara Revlon Machiavelli, Kyra Ebony Machiavelli, Blossom Revlon, Genovia Garcon Lanvin, Melina Ebony. Eighth generation, Tutu Khan West, Quana Ebony Balenciaga, Jada Revlon Machiavelli, Pandora West, Kamaya Ebony Balenciaga, Rachel Garcon, Allison Prodigy, Toxie Mugler, Lucia Margella, Daphne Revlon, Quanice Prodigy, Octavia Gorgeous Gucci, London Balenciaga, Milan Aga 007, Kaya Mizrahi. The ninth generation, Cache West, Jalen Moscow, Layla Balmain, Jemiah Balmain, Margella, Kendra Revlon West, Didi Gorgeous Gucci, Cheyenne Escada 007, Kylie Balenciaga, Barbie Balenciaga, Calypso Balmain, Medusa Balenciaga 007, Shoni Delcour, Princess Balenciaga, Samantha Demir Versailles, Lala Demir Versailles, Nakia St. Laurent, Noelle Demir Versailles, and Omi 007. Why is Film Queen performance important? Femme Queen performance is important because these women were blessed with the gift of expression. I believe the art of Vogue, specifically Femme Queen performance, is a radical art and that it provides us liberation from the standards and expectations of this world. The reality is that there are laws and limitations put in place to stop the progression and sustainability of life for trans women. We are positioned as outsiders in this world. So for us to actively fight against the structural and systematic oppression in this world, coming to ballroom spaces and being on this floor is an act of resistance against that oppression. It's weaponized femininity. It's the act of expressing your existence in the most liberated and disciplined way. Radical expression has been a constant tool that Black people continue to utilize in this world due to the operations of anti-Blackness, racism, transphobia, homophobia, misogynistic in a misogynistic world that was destined to, designed to strip us of our existence. Black women, specifically Black women of trans experience, are amongst the most vulnerable and marginalized communities in this world. And coming to these spaces dedicated to us is a counterattack against the struggles of the world. These women use their bodies to perform and to connect with music to unleash stories. Their style of dance is studied and used by countless individuals around the world. These women went on the floor for years and gave the world so many moments. And I feel as though those moments aren't as analyzed and celebrated as they should be, which is why the work that I do is to preserve and showcase the history. That is why Femme Queen performance is so important, because it's a redistribution of our individualistic power in the world, especially in this space that was created for us by us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noelle.
Of course.
I'm bringing all some questions. We solved the practical stuff in our scene accessible like this. So maybe I'll start with like a question first. And then the questions in the chat, Anna will send them to the chat. We can read this off. I guess for me, as I'm interested in becoming like trying to archive our scene in Canada, are there other people in the US that are doing similar work to you and are formalizing their archives in public? I know that the history of ballroom is so vast and like it goes on for like decades and decades. So like, has anyone started that work of like every ball in every city, who won grand prize, who was the panelist, all these things? Has anyone started to do that?
Yes, there are many people actually doing the work that I do. A good friend of mine, La Diovana, was one of the first, and that's her social media, and her Twitter and Instagram is La Diavana. She is a great archivist and someone that like dissects the history and the technicalities of Vogue and Ballroom, and someone that I like saw doing, that work early on. Another good friend of mine is Dante Lewis. He's the creator and founder of Humans of Ballroom, which is a platform that showcases the history of individuals in ballroom and their story and their journey in and out of the community. And he is a great artist who like weaves together like clips from the past and present to like showcase the evolution of ballroom. And his social media is Humans of Ballroom as well.
Well, thank you. Anyone else want to ask a question? You can go ahead. You have to go physically first. Excuse me.
Hi.
Juan, you have to speak up a bit or come closer to the laptop, please.
Mhm. Ask him, can he type the question in the
Yeah,
and
we
like,
couldn't hear that at all, Juan.
I
Sorry.
want to make sure I answer it like to my best ability.
Can you hear me?
It's really muffled. It's really
I can hear
muffled
you.
now.
I can hear you clear.
No, I know. That's what I know.
Okay.
Hello, is that better?
Yeah, that's better. It's way better.
Sorry, 1 second. Hold up.
That's clear as day now, Ralph. You could ask the question again,
Sure.
Juan.
Sorry, go ahead, one.
Hi, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I just wanted to first commend you because specifically my question is about the distinction of generations and the really profound list of every single femme queen that I've also seen within those types of generations. I was just a little bit curious on how you distinguished that in such a profound and specific.
Like the eras. Okay.
Yeah.
So with my study and my understanding of ballroom, you can going back and looking to see who comes from different eras, it's quite easy to tell who comes from a certain era by the way they vogue and by the way that the music has evolved. And honestly, it's it took me months to kind of see who comes from where and what, but it's it's a very interesting thing because it showcases the evolution and just how each generation kind of changes the structure for the generation to come after them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? On the chat, anyone, or in the Zoom?
Yeah, it's Kira. I have a question. I just really enjoyed this concept of weaponized femininity. And so I was curious if you could speak a little bit more around how weaponized femininity might be expressed. For example, I'm noticing your nails, so which are sharp and maybe claw-like. And so how is weaponized femininity also expressed not only in the dance but in the aesthetic, and why particularly is that important in that tension?
So for me, when I speak about weaponized femininity, it comes from a place of and I think I think in this particular space, like for Black queer women and just women like all around, like we're kind of like put on a limitation on how we can express ourselves and like how can I say this? How expressive like we can be like with our femininity, like with womanhood, with like the clothes we wear, with how we speak, with how we present like in public spaces. Weaponized femininity is kind of a way of like of taking all of that back, taking all of the expectation and all of the requirements on what it means to be a woman or to be feminine or to be of service to like to people as a woman, right? It's about taking all of that power back and expressing yourself in a way that is not dictated by the public, by the general, by men, by even people like within the community. Wait, could y'all hear me? Okay, I didn't want.
No, we're
Okay.
good. We're good.
Okay.
Anyone else want to ask questions, thoughts, or even feelings or sentiments? I don't think they have to be necessarily like. And also, Noelle is also in the ballroom scene, so she's not just like a person who does archives. Like she's a exclusive on Ben. Like yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, just kind of a fun question.
Hi.
Who are your favorites right now?
My favorites right now. Well, like a lot of like my favorites are like actually close friends of mine. But my favorite Femme Queen performance like of today were like in present terms. It would definitely be Nakia Versace Saint Laurent, a dear sister and a friend of mine, someone who I like love and study and watch for a while now. Butch Queen Vogue F.E.M.M.E. I would definitely say. Wait, I think I only mentioned Nakia. Okay, who else do I love? I love a lot. Like I love, like I said, like like my favorites are like close friends of mine. Omi Juicy 007 is a like another like favorite of mine in Femme Queen performance. For Butch Queen Vogue Femme, I would say Miles Miyake Mugler is definitely like my favorite, like across the board. I love like the intricacies and the technicalities like of their Vogue. Makai Balenciaga, another favorite of mine. Let's see who else. I have like I could go on and like by my favorites because I watch everybody. Like it's kind of like my job to like know everybody who walks like in like certain categories. So yeah, like I'm a fan of like a lot of people, but definitely like Nakia and Miles and Makai are like some of the people that I feel like is like the definition of the category that they walk.
Yeah, I guess for like people who are just getting into it, what are ways that people can like learn who's who, you know? For newcomers.
Honestly, a good way to like know who's who. There's this Vogue page that posts like balls and ballroom throw. Not, I think it's an Instagram page, but definitely ballroom throwbacks is a great outlet on YouTube to like know who's who. I am Sugar Champagne is the individual who like posts all the clips like past and present of like Voguers across different eras. Humans of Ballroom on Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, I can actually put like the links like to these pages in the chat.
Yeah, no, well, we can maybe we'll check in on the email and get some of those from you. I think
Okay.
a lot of us do follow some of those people maybe already, but for sure we can share that to everyone. I want to ask. I'm interested to know two things. I guess, what's your thoughts on the women's scene that used to be with a women's scene that isn't exist anymore? The because I know about that was a big thing in ballroom for a bit, like having the necessity for like a women's scene, like for butch folks too, and queer women. And then also, I guess at the same time, and another question as well is, are you, because of your knowledge, I feel like you inherently you have host mentality, like you have host possibilities for balls. So have you pursued going into being a host because of what you know and or a commentator or something? So those are the two questions.
Reiterate the first question again.
I was just asking if your thoughts about the women's scene, why there isn't a women's scene anymore, or the function of necessity of it in ballroom. Yeah.
So basically, like what you're saying is like, should there be like a scene that is like primarily like dominated by women?
Well, there was a scene, the WB, yeah, there was a women's scene before. I guess my question is like, do you think that there's a necessity for it to come back, or how do you feel the women's scene has maybe proliferated into the mainstream scene now? I know the categories have transferred, and you know what I mean?
I definitely think there should be a scene like that is dedicated and like primarily overlooked, like looked over by women. I think in ballroom today, there is not that much importance of like women being leaders outside of like outside of the categories they walk. Yeah. Outside of them just showing up on the floor, right? I think that's gonna take like a lot of work and a lot of like layering and unpacking that a lot of people really aren't ready for. But it is needed though. And for the second question, I am planning a ball. I am planning a ball that'll be in my hometown, like dedicated to like the 2000s era of ballroom, and it'll be like in support, like I'm doing the ball like in support of my documentary and the work that's like attached to that. So yeah, I definitely want to be like I definitely want to be a person like who throws balls and like who puts like an importance on certain aspects of balls. So yeah, I would definitely like, that's definitely something that I'm interested in.
Cool. Woo! Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Spencer.
Okay. I have a question. So because you're so knowledgeable, especially about the evolution of Vogue performance and Vogue Femme, do you have any predictions for what kind of changes may happen with performance in the next like decade, or like styles that may emerge out of the current like landscape of performance?
I definitely think it's going to get faster, and I definitely think no, you're fine. I definitely think it's going to get faster, but I also think it's going to bring a level of like of acrobatic like ability and a level of like I feel like people will finally start to look at Vogue and dance like in general as a sport, because it really is a sport, honestly. I think where ballroom is going now, people will take like the athleticism like seriously.
Maybe our last question.
Hey, so earlier you mentioned that you're from Texas, and you mentioned you're planning a ball there, so that's really exciting. I wonder if you can kind of speak to maybe the history of the ballroom scene in the South, or maybe more specifically Texas, and maybe what makes it different from, say, like New York.
So like meccas of ballroom, like Philadelphia, like New York, New Jersey, Chicago, Atlanta was like definitely was kind of like one of the first places that people went to for balls, like back when it was first flourish, right? Ballroom in the South, like for like Houston, because I'm like, so the Gulf Coast scene has Houston, well, has Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, what's another, like Mississippi, Ohio, I believe as well. So like the like Florida and Florida. So ballroom, like from like in the South compared to like up north is still kind of like the differences between them is that like we're still kind of like forming our scene, especially like in Texas. Like we've had balls here, we've had like balls and people, you know, come to Texas for balls sometimes, but we're still kind of like building up that consistency because like Texas is more so of a pageant state. We're still trying to like get into like a more ballroom dominated like cultural space.
Noelle, before we go, I was wondering if you could share more about your documentary or anything you're doing next.
So my documentary is titled F.E.M.M.E, For Every Moment Made Every Day, and it will be about trans women like from different eras and generations, like talking about like their life story, like from childhood to like present times, and just how they have navigated between ballroom and like their personal lives and like all of the spaces that they have entered. I'm still like in the process of like finalizing like my creative team and everything, but like every like subject or shall I say every woman like attached to the documentary has already like been put in place. So it'll be like a docu-series, and each woman will have an episode, and I'm also like a subject as well. So yeah, like I plan to, well, if God says the same, like I plan to like start shooting this summer, but yeah, it's gonna be like a long process. But I will like be putting like things out, and, like having events as the process like goes on.
Woo! That's so cool. Noelle, I want to say thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And also, we will be in touch about the documentary. We got places here. We got Chris here still, I think, in the Zoom that works for queer film out on screens. So I'm sure we could find a space to present you here when it's ready to go. So we'll talk about that another day. Sorry, my producer brain's like, ooh, let's do that, let's do that. Thank you so much.
I would love that.
Ralph, quick thing, Noelle, if you drop in the chat where people can find you and kind of follow this archival journey.
If you're not following her already, you're not doing ballroom. Like, what the fuck?
I know, I'm just covering the bases.
Sorry, hold on. I was trying to like, yeah.
Thank you so much, Noelle. And we'll be in touch soon about getting those links from you to share with the rest of our VVJ folks.
Of course. Thank you all so much. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for just listening to me talk. I loved it.